Have you ever noticed how strange life can be? A person can survive storms, heartbreak, rejection, poverty, failure, loneliness, and somehow keep moving. And then one ordinary Tuesday, they quietly decide they've had enough. Not because life became impossible, but because hope became invisible. Let me tell you something. The greatest danger in life is rarely the obstacle standing in front of you. The greatest danger is believing that today's pain is permanent. Think about this for a moment. If someone handed you a magnificent book with 1,000 pages and the first 20 pages were difficult to read, would you throw the entire book into the fire? Of course not. Yet every single day, people judge the value of their entire lives by one painful chapter. One chapter, not the whole story, just one chapter. Here's what most people don't understand. Life is not asking you to have all the answers today. Life is asking whether you'll still show up tomorrow. That's the question, not whether you're the smartest, not whether you're the richest, not whether you've made mistakes, not whether you've failed. The real question is, will you show up again? Because there is only one life, just one, not two, not another rehearsal waiting somewhere. Not another version where everything magically goes perfectly. This one, the one you're living right now, the ordinary mornings, the difficult conversations, the silent battles nobody knows about, the dreams you've almost forgotten. This is it. And because this life is precious, giving up costs more than people realize. I learned something years ago while talking to an elderly man sitting quietly outside a small repair shop. His hands were rough, his clothes were simple, his face carried thousands of wrinkles. Every wrinkle looked like it had survived another season. We spoke for hours. He never talked about money. He never talked about awards. He never talked about fame. Instead, he looked at me and smiled. He said, "People think I regret the times I failed." Then he shook his head. "No, I regret the weeks when I stopped believing I could become someone better." That sentence stayed with me. Because failure can teach you. Pain can strengthen you. Loss can humble you. But hopelessness convinces you to stop writing your story before you've discovered who you're becoming. Think about the seed planted beneath the ground. Imagine if the seed could think. Imagine it could speak. It would probably believe it had been buried forever. Everything around it is dark. Heavy soil presses against it. Nothing makes sense. No sunlight, no applause, no evidence of progress. But what the seed calls burial, nature calls preparation. What if some of your darkest seasons are not your ending? What if they're your roots growing where nobody can see them? Here's what most people don't understand. Growth is almost always invisible before it becomes undeniable. The athlete trains long before anyone notices. The musician practices while nobody is listening. The writer fills pages nobody reads. The entrepreneur works when there are no customers. The student studies before receiving the diploma. The parent sacrifices before the child says, "Thank you." Invisible effort, the visible results. But our world has become impatient. Everyone wants harvest without planting, strength without struggle, confidence without discomfort, wisdom without experience, character without sacrifice. Life doesn't work that way. Life whispers something completely different. It says, become the kind of person who deserves the future you're asking for. Notice I didn't say earn people's approval. I didn't say become perfect. I said become, because becoming is a daily decision. Every morning you wake up, life quietly asks you one question: who are you becoming today? Not yesterday, today. The answer isn't found in one giant decision. It's hidden inside tiny moments most people ignore. Choosing to get out of bed, choosing to forgive, choosing to study, choosing to walk when you wanted to quit, choosing to tell yourself one more hopeful sentence. Tiny decisions, massive consequences. The compound effect isn't exciting at first. In fact, it's almost boring. One page today, one workout today. One honest conversation today, $1 saved today, 1 hour learning today, nothing dramatic happens. And that's why people quit, because they mistake quiet progress for no progress. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched water drip onto a rock? 1 drop changes nothing. 10 drops change nothing. 100 drops, still nothing. But leave it long enough, and stone begins to surrender. Water is soft. Rock is hard. Yet consistency defeats strength. Think about that. Soft water shapes hard stone, not because it's stronger, because it refused to stop. Maybe your consistency is more powerful than your talent. Maybe your patience is more valuable than your intelligence. Maybe your willingness to continue is your greatest gift. I remember hearing about a young man who desperately wanted to change his life. Every January he made promises. Every February he lost motivation. Every March he blamed circumstances. Every April he started comparing himself to everyone else. Years passed. Nothing changed. One day he met an old teacher. The teacher didn't give him a motivational speech, didn't hand him a magical secret. Instead, the teacher placed 2 empty jars on a table. Into the first jar, he dropped 1 small pebble. Into the second jar, he dropped 1 handful of sand. Then he asked, which jar will fill first? The one with sand. Correct. Then he smiled. Your habits are the sand. Your dreams are the pebbles. You keep waiting for giant moments while ignoring tiny actions. That young man realized something. His future wasn't missing because of 1 giant mistake. It was missing because thousands of little choices were pointing him somewhere else. Direct is more important than speed. Ride that with your heart. Direction. You don't need to run if you're finally walking toward the right destination. Because people often celebrate speed, but speed in the wrong direction only increases regret. Slow progress toward purpose beats fast movement toward distraction every single time. Here's what most people don't understand. Your environment is always talking to you. Look around your room, your desk, your phone, your conversations, your calendar, your habits. Everything is asking you to become someone. The question is, who? If every day begins with comparison, you'll slowly become insecurity. If every day begins with gratitude, you'll slowly become peace. If every day begins with excuses, you'll slowly become limitation. If every day begins with responsibility, you'll slowly become possibility. Your future self is being built by ordinary mornings, not extraordinary ones, ordinary ones. The mornings when you're tired, the mornings when nobody believes in you, the mornings when motivation doesn't arrive, those mornings matter the most because motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. Motivation knocks on the door occasionally. Discipline already lives inside the house. People ask, how do I become stronger? Become reliable. Reliable to yourself. Keep promises to yourself, even small ones, especially small ones. Because every broken promise sends your mind a dangerous message. I can't trust myself. And every kept promise whispers another message. I do what I say. Confidence isn't born from compliments. Confidence grows from evidence. Evidence that you kept going. Evidence that you stood back up. Evidence that you finished what you started. Evidence that your word means something, even when nobody else is watching. Think about a bridge. Nobody worries about crossing a bridge because of 1 bolt. Thousands of small bolts create trust. Your confidence is exactly the same. Thousands of tiny victories. Tiny, almost invisible, yet together, unbreakable. Let me tell you another story. There was a woman who wanted to learn a new skill at the age of 53. People laughed, some politely, some openly. One person actually told her, it's too late. She smiled. She didn't argue. She simply kept learning day after day, week after week, month after month. 5 years later, the same people who doubted her started asking for advice. Interesting, isn't it? Time passes whether you grow or not. 5 years will arrive. The only question is, who arrives with those 5 years? The same version of you? Or someone transformed by daily commitment? Because the calendar keeps moving. It never waits. It never asks permission. It keeps turning pages. And one morning you wake up wondering where the years went. That's why I say, don't give up. Not because life owes you success, but because your future deserves a chance to meet the person you're capable of becoming. There are people walking around carrying extraordinary potential inside ordinary routines. Nobody notices them. Not yet. The greatest oak tree once looked like something a child could hold in one hand. The greatest musician once sounded terrible. The strongest leader once doubted every decision. The wisest teacher once asked simple questions. Everyone begins somewhere. The tragedy isn't beginning small. The tragedy is refusing to begin because you're afraid of looking small. Think about children learning to walk. They fall. Again. 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 Imagine if babies judged themselves the way adults do. I fell twice today. I guess walking isn't for me. Ridiculous. Yet adults do this every day with dreams. I failed once. I guess business isn't for me. I got rejected. I guess love isn't for me. I made mistakes. I guess success isn't for me. No failure is feedback, not identity. Pain is an experience, not a permanent address. You can visit pain, just don't build your house there. I learned something from a gardener that completely changed how I viewed difficult seasons. He walked through his garden carrying pruning shears. I asked why he was cutting healthy branches. He laughed. They're healthy. That's exactly why. If I don't remove some growth, the tree spends energy in the wrong places. That stayed with me. Sometimes growth requires addition. Sometimes growth requires subtraction. Not every opportunity deserves your time. Not every friendship deserves your energy. Not every distraction deserves your attention. A focused life often looks smaller before it becomes greater. And that can feel uncomfortable because we confuse being busy with being productive. They're not the same thing. A person can spend 12 hours moving and still make no meaningful progress. Another person can spend 2 deeply focused hours changing the direction of their future. Attention is one of the most valuable currencies you possess. Where you invest it determines who you become. Imagine carrying a bucket with tiny holes. You keep pouring water into it, but it never stays full. Many people live like that emotionally. Every day they receive encouragement. Every day they receive opportunity. Every day they receive love. But comparison, bitterness, resentment, constant distraction keep creating holes in the bucket. No matter how much life gives them, it leaks away. Sometimes the answer isn't finding more water. It's repairing the bucket. That's why healing matters. Not because it erases the past, but because it stops the past from stealing tomorrow. Think about this for a moment. What story have you been telling yourself? Not the story you tell other people, the quiet one, the one you repeat while driving alone, the one you hear lying awake at night, because your inner conversation quietly becomes your outer reality. If every day you tell yourself you're finished, your actions will eventually agree. If every day you tell yourself there's still another step to take, your feet will start looking for the next path. Your mind listens to your repeated words more than your occasional inspiration. That's why you must become careful with what you rehearse internally, not fake positivity, not pretending everything is perfect, but honest hope. Hope that says, today is difficult, and I'm still moving. Hope that says, I don't know everything, but I can learn. Hope that says, I'm tired, but I'm not done. Those simple sentences become quiet anchors during life's storms. And storms will come. No one escapes them. There will be seasons when it feels as though every door closes at once. Moments when people misunderstand your intentions. Moments when your effort seems invisible. Moments when you question whether all the sacrifice is worth it. During those moments, I want you to picture an old lighthouse standing on a rugged coastline. The waves crash against it day after day. The wind screams. Rain falls. Years pass. The lighthouse doesn't argue with the storm. It simply keeps shining. Its purpose isn't to stop the storm. Its purpose is to remain faithful to the light it was built to carry. Now ask yourself, what is the light you were built to carry? Because once you begin living from that place, something remarkable starts to happen. The opinions that once felt overwhelming begin to lose their grip. Not because people suddenly stop talking, but because you become so deeply connected to your purpose that you stop measuring your worth by the volume of other people's voices. Let me tell you something. There is a quiet freedom that arrives when your purpose becomes louder than your fear, not because fear disappears. Fear rarely disappears. It simply loses its position at the steering wheel. Most people spend their entire lives trying to eliminate fear before they take action. But courage has never required the absence of fear. Courage has always required a decision. Think about this for a moment. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest you've never entered before. You can hear birds. You can hear leaves moving in the wind. You can hear sounds you can't identify. Every instinct tells you to stay where it's familiar. But beyond that forest is the life you've been praying for. Would standing still make the forest disappear? No, it would only delay the journey. Many people are waiting for confidence before they begin. Life is waiting for them to begin before confidence arrives. Confidence is not the ticket you buy before entering the arena. Confidence is the reward you earn for staying in the arena. I learned something years ago from watching a craftsman restore an old wooden table. At first glance, the table looked ruined. Scratches, cracks, faded color, broken corners. Most people walking past would have thrown it away. But the craftsman looked at it differently. He didn't see damage. He saw potential hidden beneath years of neglect. For weeks, he sanded the surface. Dust filled the room. Progress looked ugly. The table actually appeared worse before it appeared better. Then one afternoon, he applied the final finish. The wood began to glow. Beautiful patterns appeared that had been hidden for decades. The same table, the same wood. The difference wasn't replacement. It was restoration. Here's what most people don't understand. Some of you don't need a completely different life. You need restoration. Your confidence has been covered by disappointment. Your joy has been covered by comparison. Your dreams have been covered by criticism. Your discipline has been covered by comfort. But underneath all those layers, the person you were meant to become is still there. Life isn't asking you to become someone else. Life is inviting you to uncover the strength that's already inside you. That's why I always encourage people to stop asking one dangerous question. Why is this happening to me? Replace it with another question. What can this experience teach me? Notice the difference. One question creates helplessness. The other creates growth. One keeps you looking backward. The other gently turns your eyes forward. Questions shape direction. If every morning you ask yourself, what's wrong with my life? Your mind becomes an expert at finding problems. Ask instead, what's one thing I can improve today? Now your mind begins searching for opportunity. Your brain is like a faithful assistant. It answers the questions you repeatedly ask. Ask better questions. This ain't better directions. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman who worked in a small bakery. Every morning she arrived before sunrise while the city was asleep. She mixed flour, water, yeast, and patience. People walked in later and admired the fresh bread. Nobody applauded the 4 o'clock mornings. Nobody celebrated the countless failed recipes she had learned from. They only saw the finished loaf. One day I asked her, how did you become so good? She smiled and said something I'll never forget. I stopped trying to bake perfect bread. I started trying to become a better baker. Do you hear the difference? she shifted her focus from the result to the person producing the result. That's one of the greatest mindset shifts you'll ever make. Instead of obsessing over success, obsess over becoming successful. Instead of chasing confidence, build competence. Instead of demanding immediate results, master daily improvement. Results often arrive quietly after identity has already changed. Think about an iceberg. People only notice the part floating above the water, but the greatest portion exists beneath the surface. Your visible success will always depend on invisible character, integrity, patience, humility, consistency, self-control, personal responsibility. Nobody can easily photograph those qualities, yet those unseen qualities hold everything else together. The world celebrates performance. Life rewards preparation. The world applauds moments. Life transforms habits. That's why your ordinary Tuesday matters. Not just your birthday. Not just New Year's Day. Not just the first of the month. Today is shaping tomorrow, whether you notice it or not. Every ordinary day is quietly casting a vote for the person you'll eventually become. I want you to imagine two builders standing side by side. Both receive the same pile of bricks. The first builder becomes overwhelmed. He stares at the enormous pile. He complains. He delays. He keeps waiting until he feels inspired. The second builder picks up one brick, places it carefully, then another, then another. At sunset, the pile still looks enormous. But a foundation has appeared. Weeks later, walls begin rising. Months later, there's a home. Nothing magical happened. Only repeated action. People often call someone lucky. But when you look closely, luck frequently has fingerprints covered in discipline. Think about all the ordinary decisions that nobody saw. The evenings spent learning instead of scrolling endlessly. The mornings spent preparing while others kept sleeping. The uncomfortable conversations. The difficult sacrifices. The willingness to stay committed after excitement disappeared. Success usually whispers before it shouts. Most people leave while success is still whispering. They quit during the quiet season. The season where nothing dramatic seems to happen. The season where progress is measured in millimeters instead of miles. Yet that's often the exact season where your future is being built. Here's what most people don't understand. Nature never rushes. The sunrise doesn't panic. The seasons don't compete. Trees don't compare their height every morning. A river never apologizes because it reaches the ocean one day later than another river. Everything grows according to its season. Only humans keep demanding fruit from seeds planted yesterday. Patience is not passive. Patience is disciplined trust. It is continuing to water the ground even when no green leaves have appeared. That kind of patience changes people because while you're waiting for the harvest is also waiting for you to become the kind of person capable of handling it. Sometimes the blessing arrives slowly because your character is still catching up to your dream. Think about how dangerous it would be to hand the keys of a powerful vehicle to someone who has never learned how to drive. The vehicle isn't the problem. Preparation is. Many people ask for greater opportunities. Life quietly asks whether they're prepared for greater responsibility. Responsibility always comes before influence. Character always comes before lasting success. I remember speaking with a man who had lost nearly everything. His business had failed. His savings had disappeared. Friends had vanished. He looked at me and said, "I thought my life was over." Then he paused. But something strange happened. When everything I depended on disappeared, I finally discovered who I was without those things. Think about that. Some losses don't reveal your weakness. They reveal your foundation. When everything unnecessary falls away, whatever remains is often your real strength. Maybe that's why difficult seasons can become powerful teachers. Not because pain is enjoyable. pain isn't enjoyable, but because adversity has a way of exposing what comfort often hides. Comfort can hide procrastination. Comfort can hide fear. Comfort can hide excuses. Pressure reveals them. It's like squeezing an orange. You don't get apple juice. You discover what was already inside. Pressure doesn't create character. Pressure reveals character. And once you see what's inside, now you know what to strengthen. This is why self-awareness is one of the greatest gifts you can develop. Not self-criticism, self-awareness. There's a difference. Self-criticism says, I'm hopeless. Self-awareness says, here's an area where I can grow. One destroys momentum, the other creates it. Be honest with yourself, but don't become cruel to yourself. Imagine trying to teach a child to ride a bicycle. Would you scream every time they lost balance? Would you insult them every time they fell? Of course not. You'd encourage them. You'd adjust the seat. You'd remind them to keep pedaling. So why do so many adults speak to themselves with words they would never say to another human being? Your inner voice becomes the atmosphere where your future either grows